Okay, I will. You folks have the dubious honor of engaging my first formal presentation of Lianja. I've talked about it with the LA Fox group and another group.
I've got it. I've got sound.
Pardon?
Excellent.
I think somebody else just got their mic working, Hank.
Presentation mode.
Yeah, in presentation mode, that'll mute everybody except for Hank and I.
The conference is now in conversation mode.
And if it's
It'll
in
mute everyone except who?
Except for Todd and Hank, if you put it back into that mute them. And then that'll kill the little bit of echo we're getting.
Yeah.
The conference is now in presentation mode.
So if anybody's got a question or anything, just go ahead and type that in the chat window, and then I'll interrupt Hank with it. Go ahead, Hank. Uh-oh, do we lose Hank?
The conference is now in conversation mode.
Yeah, apparently it's muting me too.
Well, we've had that problem a couple times. Doesn't sound like we're getting too much of an echo tonight, so we'll have to go this way. If folks can turn off your microphone, that would be helpful.
Yeah, right. If folks would turn off your mics, that would really be very helpful. So, we got something weird going on the line here. So I've been doing Fox XBase since way back when, and before that some other languages. And when FoxPro was discontinued, like all of us, I started looking around. Actually, I started looking around beforehand with .NET when it first came out. Saw some things there that didn't make sense to me in terms of the reason I went to FoxPro in the first place, which had to do with doing business apps in a very straightforward way and getting results without having to jump through a lot of technological hoops. So, when FoxPro was discontinued, the question is, where do you go from there? And I looked high, and I looked low, and I looked from side to side, believe me. And finally, after some reservations at first about Lianja, I really didn't get it. I ended up about 18 months ago making a decision that, yeah, Lianja is the way I'm going to go, but there are a lot of things about it that I'm either going to have to learn or are going to have to be, hopefully, added to the framework and the features to do the things that I like to do. Now, let me give you a very quick take on where I'm coming from. In VFP, Frank Camp and I worked to make the ProMatrix framework, which we chose for its simplicity, not for its elegance, but for its simplicity in terms of modifying, and built a metadata framework around it and in it, and integrated that with XCase for entity relationship design, and also extended metadata input. And did some nice things with it that allowed us, for example, to take an app and run it identical code and throw some switches and you're done between DBFs and SQL Server. Also throw some switches, and we demonstrated this in a training class in 2005, run the same app, exact same code, against the web service. The web service being the exact same program run as a service, either under Westwind and or under Ask.NET, and we demonstrated both at that time. So that's where we're coming from. We're coming from a place of great productivity, terrific tools by the time we got done with them, and if we couldn't create that where we were going, then that wasn't going to be a good place for us. So it was with that spirit that I joined the efforts with Lianja. I'm not an employee of Lianja. I'm a FoxPro developer who wants Lianja to succeed because it's the best chance I have for getting what I had in VFP and for moving into the future of devices, the future of enterprise apps, the future of, we'll get into all those things that Lianja can do. But let me talk to you just 1 second about Lianja, because this is a theme in Lianja that you can easily miss when we look at the technical details. I saw that name Lianja and I said, where the heck is that from? And it took me a lot of Googling before I found, and the Lianja folks have never mentioned this except in reference to when I brought it up on the forum. The name Lianja comes from an epic tale from the central Congo region of Africa, first transcribed in the 1400s, at least 500 years older than that. Like all epics, it has its protagonists and antagonists and fighting back and forth and all of that, heroic struggles. But it has one other aspect to it, and this is what it turns out did attract Lianja to its name, the Lianja folks. And that is, it's an epic of reconciliation, of bringing together opposites into community. And that is something that Lianja does in a lot of ways. But let's move on from here. We're VFP developers. It's all about data. If it isn't all about data, it's wrong. And you can see how wrong it is, in my opinion. The folks who are doing .NET 3 years after they started doing .NET, I read them making comments, and it happened last week, saying, well, I really ought to write a link extension method for. This link extension method is something that a beginner could do in VFP because it's straight SQL. And so there's something wrong when that's happening, when smart people are having to climb those kind of hurdles. So Lianja starts with the idea of data just the way VFP does. It's at its core. There are no sacrifices made in terms of our data handling. You have live cursors. The live cursors are automatically updatable unless you don't want them to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We'll get into that, and you'll see some of the great features of how it works. But as you can expect, when you're a VFP developer, if this thing doesn't import your DBFs, kiss it goodbye. So yes, it can import your DBFs. You drag them in there, drag in your DBCs. It can import your backend SQL DB. All you do there is give it the DSN, either constring or the defined DSN. And it can work directly with your DBFs using the Sybase Advanced Speech Stream ODBC driver. The directions on how to do that are up on the Lianja forum. Lianja has some pretty good help available has very good help available on the forum. Also has a wiki that has all the information about the different commands. One of the things you'll find, generally speaking, is that a lot of the VFP commands have been made to be even more useful by having additional pieces added to them. And you might find that some of your favorite commands don't have all the pieces there, as has happened to all of us as we've been working with the beta. But you make the case to Barry. Hey Barry, this is great, except I need this for this reason. I make the business case. I will tell you, just as I would react that way if someone just said, well, it didn't work in VFP this way, well, that still hasn't made the case for it. The case is made when you can specify, here's the situation where it's really important to have it. And that's the point at which people come together, and usually within a few days, if not sooner, you'll get a report back saying it's in the next release. But you can work directly with your DBFs. You can even use DBF directly from the command line in Lianja, because they had to put that feature in just to handle importing forms and classes and projects. And you can work directly with your SQL DB. Now, this is the interesting part, and this is where we're going to get into looking at how some of the parts of Lianja work. So let me introduce you to the Lianja console, what they call the app builder, the different pieces of it. I'll reserve my commentary on it for the end of till the end of the session. but I'm going to point out to you just what the aspects are. I'm going to switch windows now, and we'll go over to the Lianja app builder. When you land in the app builder, this is a replica of what would be the app store. The app store is, in effect, what your users see. Now, there's a concept in Lianja that I would translate into words as build small, where you might have 6 menus on the top of your app, and each menu has all these different offerings. Here, always think in terms of my app is going to be running on an iPad, and that iPad might even be disconnected. How am I going to develop it? You're not going to push over your entire app with its 250 forms. What you're going to do is break it into areas of functionality, and in those areas of functionality, each one of those will be a separate, quote, app, which also gives you the easy ability to define and the ability to have users and define roles, and all of that is built into Lianja. And so when they log in, what they see in their app store is what they see in their app store is in fact they are the apps that they have available to them based upon their roles. Your apps can end up here on the front page too. It's called publishing them. There's a setting for it, and you just set it, and it shows up. You can change files. All of this is skinnable in CSS. In fact, everything that you see in Lianja is skinnable with CSS. Now, you'll understand more about this when we get to talking about some of the secret sauce that underlies Lianja. But it's an important thing to remember. Anything that you want to look differently can look differently. It's simply a matter of finding out how, and we're learning more and more about it, we being the users who are participating in the beta, as we go along. These are the apps that are on my desktop in one place or another. Why don't we create an app just for using tonight? And let's see, let's call it OFUG Live as opposed to OFUG Demo, which is already on there. One has to practice. And believe me, you are glad I practiced as much as I did, or as little as I did, as the case might be. So now we've created an OFUG Live app. If we go up here, we can see we have an OFUG Live app. Now, if I go down here and I say I want it published, then I go back out to home here, and I'm going to be way down because I just published it. I'm going to see somewhere here, General, OFUG Live. Here's OFUG. I like the look of it. I could reskin it. The places to do that are right in the settings there. Okay, so data. It's all about data, right? Let's create a database. Let's call that OFUG Live too, just for the heck of it. Okay, so now we have a database, and we can do something with data. We'll do that in a second, but let me show you around a little bit more. When you select a database, it is opened exclusively, so there are some things you can't do, some things you can do, and some things you can fudge. And here you've got tables, but it's not just tables, but we'll see about that in a second. But as you can see, can you see this menu that I dropped, Todd? Maybe not. I don't think
setting?
Yeah, off the settings, right.
No, I'm not seeing a menu
I don't
there.
think it's getting picked up. No, it's not getting picked up. That's unfortunate. The choices here are either whole window or one window, and that turns out to be a separate window. Well, You have to trust me, there's a menu here in which I can do things like make a new virtual table, modify a virtual table, and we'll add virtual tables in here. Obviously, I don't think I'm going to, let's see, when I go new virtual table, you can see this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And now let's see. Oh, you can probably see this too because it didn't turn orange. If it doesn't turn orange, usually you can see it.
Yeah, we can see that. Okay.
Okay, so I have an ODBC connection called DataWorks, and that goes to a SQL 12 database. And I'm just going to do a very simple SQL command here. And I'm going to put 1 equals 0, which is the old-fashioned way of saying no data. There's a particular reason for this that you'll see in just a second. Okay, so notice that we have VT color, and here are the fields. Down here you can see the fields, and for each field you can see the attributes. I pulled those in, and for each field we can actually change the description, except that notice that right now we can't do it. Why? Because we're in the app. When you're in the app, you can't do that. But we can do this. Oh, here it is. And so I can actually change field caption. I don't need to change this field caption because it's PK and I'm not going to show it anyway, right? So I'm going to close that. But if I go to color here, I'm going to want to change that to color. And then I close, and I'll do the same thing here. Now, I will tell you one of the things that I don't particularly enjoy about the interface here is having to go in and do this field by field like this. And fortunately, we're able to modify or add to the Lianja UI in a lot of ways. And by and large, all of this can be done from an alternate UI that you create. And of course, as we'll get to, you know, let me back up a second. From the tools that I described very briefly that we used in VFP, you know that we're going to create tools that allow us to do that here. They will be open source. They'll be, and we'll talk about open source later with regard to Lianja also. So field caption, industry code. And we'll apply that and close it. And the RGB code, similarly. And we're not going to show record type, so we don't need to do anything with that. So now that we've done that, let's move down the list here. The next thing is pages. Now, we think in terms of forms. We think in terms of desktop. Those of you who have smartphones, when's the last time you saw a desktop? Well, I suppose your home screen could sort of qualify, but that's more like the App Store with its tiles, isn't it? And but what you have is you have pages, and you got pages that can slide left, slide right, they can collapse and do all that. And that is what the pages in Lianja do. They have all that available to them. So we're going to change the name on this one and call it color page. And we'll just call it colors. Now, a page has sections in it. Remember, we talked about them either sliding in, sliding out, or collapsing. And the default mode, and you can't see this menu, which is truly unfortunate. I know, maybe I can switch to it. No, I can't switch to it. Well, there's a little menu that slips up here. You know, if I show you the whole screen, you're not going to be able to see anything. I don't think. So I'm going to choose what's called a grid section, and it just pops up here. And then I'm going to take this, and I'm going to throw it in here. Now, it was supposed to pull that over. It should have pulled those captions over, so I'll take a look at that as filing a bug tonight. We don't need this field, so I'll remove it. There's a little menu there. So we didn't keep the description one. We're going to remove that. We're going to keep this, and we're going to get rid of record type. Now, we don't have any records here. Why don't we have any records? The reason we don't have any records is because we have the 1 equals 0. So let's go fix that. In the init of this section, we're going to uncover the underlying cursor adapter underneath this thing called a virtual table. So we're going to do LOCA equals cursor adapter and VT color. Now, instead of having to play directly with all the cursor adapter properties to replace this where and parse it out, that's all built in already. So you just do LA requery and put your new where clause on. Whoops. And your new where clause is 1 equals 1. Sounds good to me. Now I'll get them all. Notice that we could filter by record type. We could filter by a number of other factors on it and change it all in this requery. And so now we save this, and we go back to the page, save the page, because that's setting in the attributes for what the net was, and we'll reload it, and there's our colors. Except these guys came back, and that was saved. So, another bug. Hey, I'm doing good tonight. So I'll just take these out of here. We don't need this. Okay, so now we have this. Now, notice, going back to the code that we had here, notice how easy it was for us to get at the cursor adapter. That cursor adapter was always there. All the cursor adapter call does is go get the object that's already existing. So you can, all the features of cursor adapters, and most of the ones in VFP are implemented here, all the ones that seem to make sense to Lianja at least. But again, if you have a business case that that says, well, this other one should be in, you bring it out on the forum, put it in the ticket, the enhancement request ticket, and they'll listen, because that's what they do. That's their track record now. For 18 months I've been watching this happen, both for me and for other people. Some of them I didn't even think should be done, but they really bend over backwards trying to meet our needs as developers. And I'll tell you something. The reason, you know what the reason is? Part of the reason is that for 1986 was when Recital came out, and Lianja is owned by the same folks who own Recital. They write apps. I mean, they have resellers who write apps. They have developers, who use Recital who write apps, but they themselves write apps. So it's like, how many people who design a development environment actually write real apps that do real things? like the ones that are banking operations on 4 continents. A lot of that code they wrote. And so they know the needs of developers, because in addition to developing these tools and all the stuff, they're actual developers. And that just makes a huge difference in their mindset. When I first looked at .NET, and I said, you know, the guy who wrote this is brilliant, but he's never written a business app. I can guarantee you that. So here we are. We've got the cursor adapter. We can do a lot of things with it. Let's go down some of the other stuff here so that you get familiarized with it. We talked pages. We're going to put another section in here in a second. We can put it in here now. Sorry you can't see this. It's just a idiosyncrasy here. We're going to put another grid section in here, and we're going to do some other things with it as we get to them. But I want you to see the other parts. Now, there's a library section here, and the library section is open to all apps. Now, if I go to apps, I have a list of files. My current app has 1 file in it, and it's the one we created when we put in this event handler here, this delegate. But the library has a whole bunch of stuff in it. You see a bunch of stuff that has PSP in the beginning of it. Those are all generic routines that we use in our work. PSP stands for Process Plus, which in turn stands for Professional Systems Plus. Take a look at the different kinds of files, though, and you'll see some called RSP. RSP files are like ASP files. You can have your VFP code mixed in with the HTML of the page. You can also do code behind, just like ASP.NET. You have that option also. The nice thing about these RSP pages is that they do get compiled just the way a DBF, not DBF, a PRG file gets compiled. And so when you're talking about serving from a server that's responding to an awful lot of requests, there's a real economy when you've got it pre-compiled and ready to run. One of the interesting things about Lianja when it's operating in either a server or even a network paradigm, assuming that you're running the files off the network, is that you can simply drop the new PRG in or the new RSP in. It'll be compiled and for you, and it just runs from there. You don't have to take the app down. You just throw the new stuff in, assuming that it's all compatible. Here you've got page library files. Now, page library files are very interesting. Let's go back to this page. If I took this page right now, and I'm going to remove this just to get it out of the way. If I took this page right now, I could save it as a page library file. Now, this gets really interesting. So I believe this will be, no, that's the app's workspace, and share the app. Which is the button to save this? Save app? No. I'm missing it. Wait a minute. No. Full screen. Share, save in the page library. Look for the books, library. So I've just saved color page in the page library. Now I go to the library. And I say, and here's color page. And what do you think happens when I click color page? I'm going to switch windows now to show you where it just showed up. Same thing, except it's now reusable anywhere. So, Very interesting from my perspective in terms of what you get to do in terms of saving pages. It's a real nice feature. I'll make that go away, and we'll pick another window here. Okay, so that's page libraries, and we talked about RSP pages. The reports are RSP pages. So right now there's a quick report writer in version 1.1. We've been told that there will be a full report designer. It too will create, however, an RSP page that you can then do different things with in the code to make fancy things happen. In Crystal Reports, there's a nice feature where you can set your breaks on dynamically based upon any one of the potential children, or two of them, or three of them, or I don't know. I don't know if it goes to four. But I know we have at DataWorks, our domain experts are incredible for their knowledge of the domain, and they've become incredible with their SQL and their report writing too. It's just a great thing to have watched over the past 13 years. And so we got one report that has 500 different variations without any different programming on our part, and it's all selectable by the users at runtime. That same thing, once you have the ability to set the order and so forth right on the fly in the RSP, you've got that same ability, because that's all that's being done in Crystal. So the whole thing is going to be able to be done here, and it's going to be really tremendous. And you say, well, what about a tree? Well, you ever seen an HTML tree? You can put a tree in a report. There's no problem at all doing that in RSP page. In fact, there is, of course, an HTML tree in Lianja. So there are a lot of things that are going to be able to be done, and a lot of them are going to end up being built in, and we're going to have the ability to add a lot into them also. Let's go down to next thing, tools. These are all really just gadgets. These are all from Google Charts, and these charts can all be used on any page where you need one. They are all, in fact, if we go back to the pages here and you look at gadgets, and well, darn, this is too bad. When you go and get your copy, your free beta trial of Lianja, you click on here, you're going to see there's a line that says Google, and then it says map, bar chart, pie chart, and also when you look at the demo, all the different kinds of charts are outlined there. But those are just HTML, and the thing is, whether it's HTML or whether it's VFP code, it can all be in text, and that makes for some magic happenings, I gotta say. Let me put this grid section back here, so when we get back here, we'll have it to use. Versions. Look at your app versions. Every version that you saved can be rolled back to. That's an incredible feature, to be able to get back to any version of your app. You can do the same thing on your database, by the way. You can enable timelines on your database, and every single action that occurs on it will be identified and will be able to be rolled back. That's a feature of the Lianja data engine. The Lianja data engine, in turn, is your data engine in the Lianja SQL Server that we haven't really talked about yet. I think it's the next bullet point. We get to the console. Oh, this is interesting. Lianja speaks Recital VFP. It speaks Python. It speaks JavaScript. It speaks PHP. And for when you want to test out your ODBC connections, you can do that right here too. It's just a handy thing to have. Bless you. Now the interesting thing is, the term Python has the term batteries included. You probably may have heard that if you've done anything with Python. It has a whole bunch of standard libraries that are very useful. Likewise, PHP. Well, guess what? You can declare a Python library in a Python page and a function. you can call that from VFP, and the object will be marshaled back to VFP for you. You can work with it in VFP as if you were in Python. Same is true from Python to VFP and so forth. The 4 languages back and forth, objects get marshaled automatically, and you get to use all the great facilities. PHP has a cajillion functions and for doing things. Python has wonderful libraries. And you know, you want to use Node.js, that's fine, use Node.js, but then call your VFP stuff for handling data. Don't use an ORM for crying out loud. There are great facilities built in here, and this is part of the secret sauce that the entire basis for Lianja is built around the idea that everybody gets to play in here. Everyone who wants to. Now, these languages were put in because they made sense in terms of the number of developers. The only other language Barry looked at that he did not put in, and he did look at it, was Ruby. Ruby does some very funny stuff that would make it a real pain in the neck to import, and there weren't that many Ruby developers likely to move over to here, so he said, well, I'll leave it off. But if someone wanted to, the Lianja API, or C+ API, SDK, is what these language handlers are built in, and it is available, and anyone who wanted to could get the language of your choice and integrate it right in with Lianja. You could also add your own custom commands to VFP, like pizza, Papalinos, 8 a.m., Mountaineer. That's a local pizza shop here. So let's go back. Let's go down now. And over here, when you have an error, it shows up here. There are additional error logs that handle things that are deeper system level, like from the data engine, and they're both contained in a. There are 2 error logs that are contained in a folder called Debug. The debugger is lacking in some things. The main thing it's lacking in is that it cannot run while an app is open. So it's great for taking some code and running through it. You can do breakpoints and watches and all of that, but it's not something that measures up in any way to what we have in VFP. That has been acknowledged. On the forum, Lianja has said that the debugger will be in for major improvements, and I think version 1.1 was indicated for that. Between now and version 1.1, first of all, there's going to be a release of 1.0, which, as far as I know, at this point, is supposed to be the end of this month. And that includes the Lianja SQL Server. More about that in a second, too. And then the cloud server, and we'll get to what the cloud server does when we move a little bit along here. But continuing our little looking around what's available. Users, you can put a user in, you can give them a domain, something that isn't fully understood by some of us yet. Username, password, and roles, and those roles will determine whether or not they can have particular rights in particular apps. Is it read-only, for example? Can they get it? Can they even see it? And so forth. So all those things. Deployment, yeah. I'll close this app just for a second so I can show you the deployment page. You pick your database. You pick your app, and here's the apps. And you can pick your library files. And you have a variety of things you can do with it, including building an install package. When you create an install package for deployment with runtime, for example, or with cloud server, it's a single package. It has everything in it. And a simple import command pulls it in, and the app is installed. Nothing else has to run on the client when it's getting installed. But there are other ways too. You can just push it up to a directory where your cloud server is, or where your network connection is, where people are going to run from, and so forth. You can have DLLs, you can have, and so forth, obviously only on Windows. The Lianja app builder runs on Mac, Windows, and Linux. It will also run over the internet off the cloud server using an open source package called Guacamole, which is an total HTML client for quote VNC and RDP, but other things too. And Guacamole has been adapted with the permission of the copyright holder. It's FOSS, but FOSS have copyright holders, and put into the Lianja cloud server. And so you can take an app, a regular desktop app, one that it hasn't even been made to do mobile, and you can run it in a browser from anywhere. I was supposed to have that on my desktop for today's session, but they couldn't get it to me in time. I'll put it in a Hyper-V VM, and for demos like this, I'll let people log on to it and be able to actually do stuff with it. Hopefully I'll have that available for later presentations, but we'll get to that later too. Share is more interesting. There are several additions to Lianja, and the presentation I'm doing for you tonight is from the perspective of a VFP developer. I could be doing it from an enterprise IT perspective because Lianja is one heck of a great product for enterprise IT, because it covers everything from how do you support the person who wants to develop and access, but we want to have some centralized knowledge of what they're doing, and we want it to be able to run on mobile devices, all the way to building clusterable, failover clusters for a fraction of the cost of doing it with Microsoft products. And stuff that's in deployment, in use, and has been tested. So it's a great enterprise story. Great story for small businesses too, like my accountants. I got two. They're a pair, and one of them can do QuickBooks and Excel, and the other one can't. But he knows all the law stuff real well, and so they make a great pair. But how would they build little apps to make work for them? And there's a great Lianja story there. There are going to be sample apps available that folks like them will be able to take and modify to their use. The amount of work, the amount that they would have to know to be able to put up pages that clients fill out, for example, with their personal data, and that they come in and at tax time and can access from their homes with a one-time password and update and so forth. They could do all of that without any doubt at all, because if you can program an Excel spreadsheet, you can do that level of programming in Lianja, because all the tools are here to help you do it. But those aren't the stories that I was going to tell you tonight, because we're a particular kind of animal too. We're get down and dirty with the data animals. So we've been doing that a little bit, taking a look at that, and we're going to do it a little bit more, but just to fill out that part of the story. But let's take a look at and move your Lianja tables to Lianja SQL Server. Now this part of the story gets real interesting. Lianja has a data engine. That data engine is embedded, for example, in the Lianja runtime, and you can run Lianja on a network, and you can deploy that runtime to all the users on the network, and it's a one-time cost for, I think, the professional level license for the subscription, so that you get all the updates over the course of the year, is $9.95. So if you have 1,000 people in your factory and give them all the runtime, not the way I'd like to do it myself personally, but there are factories I know where they have done this in the Far East. and because they're doing it with VFP, believe it or not. So you can do that, but that same data engine is in the Lianja SQL Server with some other stuff added to it. But an interesting implication of this is that all your triggers can be written using VFP code, and that includes NoSQL code. So there you are on the Lianja SQL Server testing your RI using key lookups, which don't move the record pointer, with indexes that, based on your tuning, are sitting in memory. How fast is your RI checking going to be? It's going to be blazingly fast. Lianja is made for that kind of work, blazingly fast work. And Lianja SQL Server is not that expensive. It's nowhere near like MS SQL, I'll tell you. My day job, where we just priced 75 licenses for MS SQL Server for our hosted farm. Those 75 licenses are going to run $35,000 from CDW on a volume license. That's for concurrent as opposed to named. You buy Lianja SQL Server, you don't have any client licenses, and you get to write this great, and I say great, VFP type NoSQL code to get things done fast. I think it's just a fantastic opportunity for those of us who know how to do this kind of thing and know what it really is going to save in terms of CPU cycles, disk movements, the whole bit. And so all your stored procs are in VFP. You can also, once you've got a handle to the SQL Server, it's straight ODBC. That same ODBC driver, by the way, can be used from VFP to hit against Lianja SQL Server just as you would any other ODBC source. You can in your SQL exec, you can call any valid VFP command on the server. Gives you a lot of flexibility when you need to test silly stuff out rather than having to do it in a more convoluted way. Oh, did I tell you there's no stinking 2 gigabyte limit even when you're running in 32-bit mode? The world is your table size. And it ends up everywhere. Yeah, that's the other part of the story. Windows, Mac, Linux, desktop, run your apps from there, develop your apps from there. Desktop browsers. Obviously, the desktop browser version, if you're using Guacamole, you want to have a decent, you want to have a modern browser. There are also the Windows, Linux servers. The Cloud server and Lianja SQL Server will run on Windows or Linux servers. They run better on Linux servers because the file system is faster on Linux. Also because the process separation is better on Linux. The CentOS is the version of Linux that is most favored by Lianja itself. CentOS is the community version of Red Hat Enterprise, and is never more than about a point version behind. It's very, very easy to install. I'll be putting up directions for installing it on Hyper-V instances on your Windows 8 machine, but I'll tell you more about that, where it's going to appear a little bit later. Mobile browsers. Talked about the Cloud server. The Cloud server takes the app that you've written, and you can. Let me get to this other window. The mobile browsers. The app that you have written. Can either be configured well enough by itself, or you can give alternate directions as to what to do with it, depending upon where it's going. When the Cloud server is available, you will be able to see how it looks, and I can't give you all the details. There are things I'm forbidden to say. But let's just say you're going to know how it looks before it gets there, okay? And you're going to be able to do it in a way that is quite unique. So mobile browsers, I don't know if you're familiar with this term, but things like PhoneGap, basically it's a web view inside a frame, makes it look like a mobile app. They skin it like a mobile app. They give it some physics like a mobile app, you know, momentum as it browses and resistance, so the momentum is slowed down. And they've got that down pretty well. PhoneGap is now owned by Adobe, but it's still open source. They have a build process they will love to charge you for. But of course, Lianja's perspective on this is, hey guys, you shouldn't have to worry about these kind of little technical details that don't have to do with how do you use data to help people out. We'll take care of that for you. Push the button. And so you're not going to go read the PhoneGap list, Google groups, to see what you don't want to be doing, spending your life doing. Unless you really like spending your life doing that, but no one's going to pay you for it, unfortunately. And then there's native mobile. Now, you've heard a lot about the difference between mobile browser apps or pseudo mobile apps, as some people call them, and native mobile. Native mobile would be like Android, which is Java, or iOS, which is Objective-C. No one is quite sure yet what the Windows RT native mobile apps are. Is it Silverlight? Is it JavaScript? Is it HTML? But JavaScript and HTML, is that an app? It's a funny world there right now. However, Lianja will have native mobile apps, and how will it be able to do that? Well, now we're getting down to the secret sauce. I was doing one of the beta installs, probably only the second or third one I'd done. I was watching the file list flow by, and I see PyQt. Then I see Qt libraries. It's no secret. Lianja doesn't try to keep it a secret at all. Lianja incorporates Qt deeply, both at the UI level and in terms of the display level, and some of the framework inside, although a lot of that's been reworked to make it more generic and able to be extended easily. So Qt, if you've been keeping up on that, as of version 5, which is coming out fully, final release in September, but it's released in working form now. Has full support for iOS and Android native mobile apps, and will have RT by version 5.5, I believe. Since I know it's coming, I haven't been keeping up with it as much. I looked at Qt early on and said, well, yeah, C++, not exactly my idea of a good time. And then they came along with Qt Quick, which has all these HTML controls. Here's that word again, HTML. So that's part of the secret sauce in Lianja, Qt. That's how it's going to offer native mobile. As for the mobile browsers, those who know aren't telling, and those who don't know can't. But I'll tell you that, I can tell you what it is, though. It will be a web view that is skinned. The other part of the secret sauce in Lianja, of course, is the Recital data engine. The Recital data engine was written back in '86 by Barry Maven, who owns Recital, owns Lianja, and a couple other companies. And it's undergone a lot of development over the years. Interesting historical fact. Back in '92, '93, when all the stuff before Microsoft bought Fox, which is probably more like '92. 91, 92. Barry got a call and said, hey, would you take over VFP development here at Microsoft when we buy Fox? And he said, no, I'm not a big corp guy. Interesting. But he enjoyed his discussions with folks involved. The fact of the matter is that Recital has been around for all those years. It's been used in a lot of places that you and I have never heard of. Some of them are classified, and I've never heard of them. But some of them are not classified. It managed on the space shuttle. It managed inventory on the shuttle because the engine is so small. On native mobile, you will be able to run VFP code on the mobile because the engine that will deploy that on the mobile is about 15K, I believe. So there is a lot of depth and breadth here with Lianja. We already covered this in a way. The VFP language is nice, but JavaScript, PHP, Python, full citizens, all the standard libraries, plus a few JS libs. You can call anything from anything, and you can embed a web view anywhere. One of the things that, well, we'll get into that. We'll get into the different kinds of development in a minute. On the cloud server. If you are into mobile development application, what you know is that if you are, when your application is downloaded from Google Play onto a device, if it then receives a URL that isn't hard cooked into the program, it will not be able to make that call. That's a security thing with Android. However, the cloud server is going to receive that not as a call, but is then going to proxy it and serve it back for you. So you will actually be able to make your calls where you need to make them, but it'll go through the cloud server. And there are a lot of VFP traditions that are continued in Lianja. You know, it's the right level of abstraction. Now, VFP was the right level of abstraction for its day, but now we got single command for email, for socket server, cursor adapter, FTP, HTTP. You can build a socket server in 6 lines code using Lianja. Now it's almost that simple in Python. I did something like that for a POS interface, and you know, the actual code for the POS part, as opposed to managing of the data, was literally about 12 lines code. You saw our use of the cursor adapter. It's the same for HTTP, FTP. In fact, FTP and HTTP are actually included in many of the commands that we would associate with the file. I mean, you open a file, but then give it an FTP place to put it, and it goes and gets it from there or writes it to there. Same with HTTP. Email, all a single command. There are additional commands you can use for different parts of things and all of that, but it's the right level of abstraction to just get the work done. We spent a lot of time, Frank and I did, in VFP, taking stuff and getting it to the right level of abstraction so that the domain users who are our programmers, the ones who have learned over 13 years great abilities at SQL and at Crystal reports, far ahead, not in terms of the domain, certainly far ahead in SQL. In terms of Crystal, I couldn't keep my head around all that stuff. It's an incredible ability these folks have. But it's the right level of abstraction for people to just use and just get the job done. The right level of metadata. There are a lot of metadata things in attributes in Lianja that have been added in response to requests, ours and other people's. Let me switch over there and give you an example of some of them at the database level and at the UI level. Over here at the database level, you can define your own procs. Let's go to OFUG demo here. OFUG Live. Okay, there we go. And we got triggers on open, on close, on before insert, on before update, on after update, on before delete, on after delete. Those weren't all in there when we began, but some of them we said, hey, we really got to be able to do here this for that reason and this for that reason. They got added in. And we look at the page and take a look. Are we not here? Oh, that's right. I got to open the app again. That's why things were the way they were. Okay, here's our app. So let's take a look at this section and take a look at some of the events that are in here. And here you see the before data create, after data changed, before data updated, after data update, before data delete, and parent data changed. Those are all cool things. And notice we can, I talked about users and roles. You can put the create roles, read roles, update roles, and delete roles in here. Here's something, read only when and visible when. And also, and those were added in directly in response to our request to do that. And UI states. I don't know if we'll have time to get into UI states. We've been whittling away the time here, and I definitely want to leave room for questions. But it's basically a state machine in which you can make things happen. Now, if you write your commands for the different UI states in what are called inline delegates, you saw me put the init code in there before. That is not an inline delegate, but an inline delegate is something that will actually be read on the HTML client. I'm talking about just the HTML client that's in a browser from the cloud server, not Guacamole. Guacamole's direct HTML representation, but the cloud server also has the ability to send to a browser. And when it does that, it sends a very small JavaScript engine. Typically, as you might know, if you do web work, when a page is being sent, it's basically a series of commands to traverse the DOM and do this here and do that there. That is not what happens in the cloud server. The cloud server sends a SAML package over that is then read by this very small little JavaScript engine, and it does the work right on the client. So the page gets cached. The next time the person hits it, it's still in the cache. The little engine grinds away, and it's right there without ever having to pull it down again, even though it's a dynamic page. That is magic. There are lots of metadata, getting back to where we are going. So let's get back to the other page here. There's a lot of metadata that's available at the DD and the UI level. That doesn't mean that there aren't missing pieces, and so that's a matter of negotiation in terms of, well, what do we need to have it for? Could we put it off in our own metadata set, and because not every user needs it, and that's a decision that Frank and I have to make as we go along. The right level of automation of things with the ability to customize. A lot of this stuff is done automatically here, but every bit of this is accessible. Let's call this a different name here. Let's call this color section. And let's leave the caption the way it is right now, called section 1. Now let's go to the console. Oh, I'm on the wrong thing. I meant to switch it. I thought I had. Okay, what I did here is I just changed this section to color section. But I left the caption as section 1. I'm going to go to the console, and I'm going to use the Lianja object. So there's the Lianja object, and I'm going to do a command get element by ID, but you can just use get. And in theory, you would traverse the tree all the way down from which page and which section. But if your names are unique, it will search it and find it for you. And I'm going to change caption. What didn't it like? Unexpected equals.
You're on the PHP.
Oh, I'm in PHP. That's funny. I can't. Yeah, I don't do PHP. Sorry about that. And we'll go back here. And says hi OFUG. If at this point I save the app, it's still going to say hi OFUG the next time I open it up. So we've got access using the Lianja object to just about everything we want. Now occasionally you'll run into a dead end. At that point you go on the forum and say, hey, I really want to be able to get to this. So could that be opened up? And in virtually every case, except, and I'll give you the exception now, right after this. In almost every case, they'll come back and say, oh, well, that's just not exposed yet. And then, 20 minutes later, maybe the next day, it's exposed now, it'll be in the next build. Here's the exception. Frank took a look at this and said something about the text box. There is no text box here. This is HTML. It's not a full text box. Should it be a full text box? Well, maybe, maybe not. Who knows? But it isn't. And if you'd have to make the case for it before you could have a prayer of it being so. Who knows? Maybe it'll be revisited. But for most of the purposes I've seen, editing in the grid has never been that terrific an idea, and we've really gotten out of it except in a very few cases. And you can do what you need here. You can't. I don't know if you'll be able to see. Yeah, you see the attributes here for the column. There's a heading. There are choices. There is validation. You can make actions happen off the change of that, and you can do get and set data mapping. This is for like foreign keys, right? And in that data mapping, you can do any code you want, including things like a key lookup that looks it up based upon a table that has possible states. And you can set read-only when so you can do an awful lot of things. But there are some things that you might be able to do with a text box that you wouldn't be able to do. But there is no text box there. So if you go looking for it as an object, you aren't going to find it. You will find the column, and you can change the attributes of the column, but you won't find text box. So they can't expose what's not there. So we have the ability to customize. In fact, we have the ability to customize and create add-ins right in the UI, extensions and add-ins. So when you create that, it'll show up under the advanced thing, and you can, and some of your, I believe it, let's see, they may have changed this on me. Extensions, here it goes. See, well, you can't see it, sorry. It's a byproduct of trying to keep the size of what you're seeing down that I'm giving you only the Lianja window rather than my whole screen, and as a result you can't see these little menus pop up because obviously they have a different H-wind on in Windows. But anyway, you can create your own extensions. It's all regular VFP code using the Lianja object. And you just stick it in that XML file, and what do you want it to call, blah blah blah, and it just shows up there just like that, all easily able to be handled. Okay, going back to our list of things here. so we keep it straight. We talked about batteries included, customizability, CSS themes and styling. You can combine CSS themes and styling with your UI states, and as a result, you can have pages change the way they look based upon whether this is a valid invoice, invalid invoice, whatever. And do not support this customer. The whole page starts flashing, trying to give you a seizure so that you won't provide support. Add-ins, and if it's not right, the C+ SDK, amazing SDK. I don't know beans about C+. But I will tell you that it's amazing to look in a C+ SDK and see a command for running VFP code. That's right, you can call VFP code from C+. There's got to be something right about any SDK that allows you to do that. Now, you can do it your way. You can import a form, a VFP form, into Lianja. Let me show you that because it's worth your seeing. Let me change the window to a little version of, and this is going to be much too big. Let me get it smaller here. Modi form, my form, and here's a simple form, my form SCX. It's got a grid, option, combo, checkbox, label, text box, and I created it simply for the purpose of importing. So let's go import it now. I'm going to just close this here, and I'll close that, and I'll switch back to here. Okay, so let's import that, and we're going to do it in the by going into the file space, and we're going to import an SCX. And so I don't know if you probably can't see this because again I don't know if you can see the window here. I'm just navigating to where I know this particular form is. And if you look down here, here it is, my form SCP, and here it is here. This is the actual code. It adds these unique identifiers on the names of them because it doesn't, if you happen to have layers of design surfaces, you could have combo 1 defined on all of them, and so this prevents conflicts. And then you go to the console, do myform.scp, and I will switch to that now so you can see it. And you're going to be, this is funny. Remember we had that table open? And in our app, well, the grid picked it up because that was the open table. So there it is. I did not expect that to happen. That's cool. So anyway, will you have work to do if you do it this way? Yes. Will it run anywhere except it'll run with Guacamole, obviously. I don't know if it'll run with the cloud server. Probably not, because remember, it's sending that XAML package over, and those XAML packages aren't going to know what to do with this kind of stuff. It's looking for stuff that's organized in a different way. It doesn't mean it couldn't be done in the future, but it will not be in the first version of the cloud server. That I have been told, and it's been announced on the forums. However, if your main purpose, as it is for many VFP developers, yeah, I want to take what I have now, I want to develop it so that I can get the functionality that I have now in my app, but I want to be able to display it without having to put runtimes in everybody's desktop or buy terminal server licenses or SQL server licenses, because the TCO is making our product look awfully expensive compared to other people's products that have maybe use ASP.NET, which even ASP.NET is cheaper than putting everything on everybody's desktop, right? Well, the TCO here compared to ASP.NET is ridiculously cheap. So, so you can do this forms, and I'll tell you also though that not every form is going to convert, which is okay. You say, wait a minute, that's not okay. It's okay only in the sense that if you say, hey, on the forum, this form of mine didn't convert. It messed it up in this way or that way. The only response I've ever seen to that has been, please file a ticket and include the SCP and your form so that we can fix the converter so that it handles that type of situation. And that's that iterative development model. Make it better over time. So you can import your forms, you can import your VCXs, you can import your PJXs, but remember it's an iterative development model. And you're going to get more limited use out of it than you would if you did it the Lianja way, which is the way I started to show you on that other page. And we'll maybe have time to finish up a little bit of that as we go along. Going back to our other window here. I hope. Here we go. Forms, classes, menus. Or you can do it the Lianja way. Small apps defined by function, I mentioned that before. Assigning rights, reconfigurable UI. I showed you how to take a page and make it show in a form. You can also embed it in other parts of the application. I heard a rumor from a little birdie that there might even be the possibility of taking these components that one makes in this way and embedding them in another form. You can, by the way, embed these FoxPro imported forms into a section and just have it run in a section. So that is possible now. I think it's coming fully in 5.7. It might be in 5.6. I'll tell you, my interest has not been in going in that way because I know that everything has to end up being able to run on basically a 7-inch notebook or a tablet, 7-inch tablet, because that's where a lot of the world's going. And certainly for business use, people don't want to carry around big laptops anymore, and they're not going to want to carry around 10.5, 11-inch tablets either. I think what they're seeing is more and more the 7 and 8-inch ranges where people are going to be carrying things around. And to make it run there, it's going to have to be more of a mobile app, I think, not just a browser app running on a tablet. But anyway, that ability is there for you if that's what you're interested in. The reconfigurable UI, you can have different gestures based upon the size of, the topography of that you're displaying on. Programming by rules, component reuse, you saw all that. Lianja, as we talked about, is data agnostic. Doesn't care where its data comes from. It's server platform agnostic. It's client platform agnostic. It's dev language agnostic. It's developer versus user agnostic. And here's what I mean by that. If you take a look at these static type languages, you can't take a domain user, a person who, for example, a good friend of mine who's building a couple nuclear power facility for Westinghouse, Fujitsu Westinghouse over in China now. His is the one that is getting done first of the two because his stuff always gets done first. And that's partly because of the way he works with people. He writes apps to help him manage projects. And they have incredible UIs. I've seen some of them. One little app he did was for reprocessing breakers from nuclear power plants. And the engineers typically would spend hours writing a report that was never the same format or style and didn't have all the same information in it. And he had them clicking down a bunch of columns with red LEDs and green LEDs and so forth, and pumping out a report that made the clients incredibly happy and saved $400,000 a year of engineer time. You throw .NET at him, and he would have some very choice words for you. VFP, no problem. He did great with it. He would do great with Lianja. And so that's what I call a domain developer, a person who is an expert in a domain who knows exactly what's needed. They may not have articulated it all. We never articulate all our inner thoughts. And it's a matter of doing it on an iterative basis. That's why the development tools you have to allow you to iterate through generations quickly. Now, when you've got a domain developer and a professional developer, and the domain developer is being asked to tell me everything you want by the professional developer, that's an impossible task. No one does it that way. You do it, you observe it, you notice the difference, and you redo it. Well, the problem is the professional developer gets in the way. So Lianja gives the domain developers the chance to do that no-meeting iterative cycle, the one that goes on in 5 seconds. They throw it on the screen. Oh, wait a minute, that's not right. They don't need to write it down and schedule a meeting or enter a change request. They just go change it. So, so the developer, the user and the developer are in many ways the same person. There is no fight between them. There's a role for professional developers too. I mean, you can take Lianja very, very deep as a professional developer, but it really finds, I think Lianja, like VFP, really finds its strength where the professional developer develops the parts that need to be developed professionally so they can be used for business purposes by the people who know the business. And Lianja just does a great job of that. SMB, small, medium business versus enterprise, I referred to that. Lianja serves the enterprise folks great with the ability to scale, certainly TCO, and great stability. I mean, Lianja is running real-time bank operations on four continents. And there's a reason for that, in addition to the fact that they save a lot of money doing it. But you can't, these are situations where you can't have anything not work. But the SMB side of it, too, works out really great. There's a special small business edition, which is just for businesses for up to 25 people. And they can, a person can build an app and push that share button, and all the other people in the organization to whom he's given rights, or she's given rights, certainly would be the case in my accountants, she would give the rights, get to use the app. It just shows up. They can hit it from the built-in cloud server that is in the small business edition. $12.45 a year, and you have 25 user license for cloud server access. What a great deal. And then there's no us versus them. I've talked about how I hate to be so banal and trite and repetitive, but I have never seen this kind of responsiveness to developers. It is a joy to work with, rather than praying that they'll listen to me and they'll think it's important. I just make the case, and that's all anyone ever has to do. You do it on the forum, you do it with your tickets, your enhancement request tickets. Lianja X is an open source repository, and it has a couple of purposes. One place is that things like Go Fish, oh, I hope someone writes Go Fish for Lianja and puts it in there. We need Go Fish. The tools are all there to do it. There's no reason it couldn't be done. I mean, it's all as open and at least as VFP. But anyway, it would go in there. Everything in there is under a permissive open source license. Lianja itself is creating sample apps for all different kinds of businesses to help domain experts get started and just be able to modify and add to them as they need. It's a great thing, and they are actively supporting it. I mean, actively supporting it with sample apps, and then we'll have the dev contributions. The stuff that Process Plus writes for Lianja will go into the dev contributions. Lianja Ed, Lianja Ed NPO. Lianja Ed, the education market. Lianja offers a free student license to any qualified educational institution that writes them and fills out the minimal paperwork and lets them know what they're going to use it for and how many student licenses they need. If they want to have a server for displaying student stuff as opposed to the business side of the operations, they will negotiate that with them also. Lianja NPO, nonprofit organizations. Nonprofit organizations have a lot of common needs, fund accounting being the big one. Why should they all have to rewrite that stuff? Now, there is some open source fund accounting software. Quite frankly, it's somewhat crapola, and it could be a lot better. Let's just say that charitably. With Lianja Ed, similarly, you've got you've got all this coursework going on for MOOCs and all of that, but there's still a market, I think, for programs, teaching programs, self-teaching programs. There are standards for that. There is commercial software that looks pretty nice. But what about schools that don't have a lot of money? What about schools in places like Rio de Janeiro and so forth, in the slums? Yeah, do they even have a smartphone or something? Well, they are getting those things, aren't they, with the $100 computers? And Brazil, I think, is one of the countries that's been doing that. So I think there's a market there. Remember, Lianja will run on anything. You take the smallest Linux machine, it will run Lianja as client, or just a browser, any browser, right? Once you have a cloud server, any browser will pick it up. So there's a lot of possibility for good things that can be done in education. Why does Lianja care? What do they get from giving away student licenses? Remember, Lianja is about reconciliation and community. It's about pulling people together, and it's about helping each other. And there's a strong component of this in everything that Lianja does. Believe it or not, but I believe it. I've seen it enough now. There's some personal stories that I can't tell you about that support this. There are goodies and more goodies. There are a lot of goodies in there. Some of them we haven't even seen. Context-sensitive help for each of the pages or sections. For each section, you can indicate what the help topic is, and you can then push the help button up there, and you can actually enter the help. And that can be HTML-based help with all kinds of formatting and stuff you want in it. You can have images referenced in it if you want, depending upon what you're using for your HTML editor. I'm creating an HTML editor in Lianja. Todd, you got to tell me how long I can go here. We're at 90 minutes now.
Yeah, that's kind of what we usually shoot for, anywhere in there. But if you got more to go, go.
Okay. I got some more stuff. Pardon?
If you want to go, go. If you want to wrap it up, you can wrap it up.
Oh, no, I got more stuff to do here. I wanted to show a couple neat things and finish it up with that, and then some final points.
Okay.
So I'm going to switch over. I'm going to show. One day I needed, I wanted a little better HTML editor in Lianja than comes with the rich text editing. And Barry said, all you got to do is use CK Editor in a web view. So I said, CK Editor in a web view? I didn't want to appear dumb. So what I did was I created a page, and I just created a blank page, and we'll call it CK Editor page. And let's get this out of the way on this page. We're going to hide that left-hand thing so it won't be bothering us all the time. And I'm going to add what's called the web view section. Sorry you can't see it here, but it's web view. And section, web view section. And here's our web view section. And I go down here, and I'm going to go to URL as soon as I find her. This is data source URL. I forget which one it is, but I believe it might be here. Let me try URL. Lib. ckeditor.rsp. And there it is. Now, and it's got all the CK editor features. And so what I did was I created the stuff I wanted, then I went to source, pulled it out, popped it into an RSP page, and munged the VFP data into it, and I had what I wanted. There are so many goodies in there. So you're going back, context-sensitive help, UI states I showed you, gadgets galore. There's a gadget called Catalog View, has picture and text and stuff like that. You fill in a few properties, and you have something that for any situation like that where you have a picture and text and you want to show them together, it just shows it. And you can use that in a side panel. There's a right side panel we haven't even looked at. You can have it fly in response to an event that's on your form. They make a selection and something else happens. There are so many goodies in here. I believe it will take me probably another year to be fully familiar with them. And that doesn't keep me from doing things. I'm writing an app for a customer now, but it does mean that there's always more to learn, and it brings a lot of smiles to my face when I say, oh yeah, there's that great thing. And I'll put up a question about something on the forum, and Yvonne Milne, the documenter and so forth, will say, well, you know, there is this. And I'll go, oh my gosh, slap face. You know, sort of like Gromit, oh my God, what's Wallace doing now? And then there's Barry's goodie bag. Barry keeps coming out with things, and he'll keep saying, well, you know, I've got these things that I don't want to expose now because it's too much for everybody to absorb all at once, which is really true. Plus, he usually wants to tweak them a little bit more before he takes them out of the goodie bag, but he just keeps pulling more stuff out all the time. And it's an amazing process. It's fun to watch. The good stuff is going to blow your minds. There's room for improvement. Now, we'll see if someone gets back to Barry about this, but it's nothing that I haven't told him in one form or another already, so it's fair game. Actually, Barry says the debugging story is not ideal. Most of us would say it's pretty unideal. That said, you can get some great coverage of what events fired when. You can actually track some things in the Event Explorer. Let me show you the event. I bet it won't even show it to you. Let's see. Here we go. I'm going to switch the window to it so that you can see it. There it is, the Event Explorer. So you can look at all the things in here that happen, and you can actually know when events fire and so forth. And so there is some good stuff built in, but it doesn't have that kind of dynamic. Now, Barry makes the case that with all these events firing, oh, I didn't tell you this, Lianja is asynchronous. The events don't fire consecutively the way we're used to in VFP, although they're not entirely there too. I think Lisa Slater-Nichols described it as having two railroads running, one for the system and one for the rest of the world. So the system menu and all that was one little railroad, and the other one was another one. And engines just kept going around, but which one actually did something depended upon what was going on at the time, and sometimes they really messed each other up. And those of you who were around in the early days when the grid was put into FoxPro and made very live and so forth, witnessed all the crashes that occurred because of that. Okay, so going back over to here, we want switch window. Here we go. Get that window out of the way. The editor has it's decent, but it's not great. It's certainly nowhere near what the VFP editor was. It will get IntelliSense and VFP style IntelliSense in which you can add stuff in. Again, Frank did a great job with our system. Every of these over 600 PRGs that's in our PSP libraries are in IntelliSense, and they get checked automatically on startup and they get added in. Great stuff. And that's all going to be available in Lianja. The back and forth between the different pages here, I can't show it to you because of the way Join Me works, but the menus that come up from the bottom of the Lianja, the bottom bar of Lianja in the app developer can all be torn off. That is, they can be made separate and they can float. I want that for all the pages in the editor. I want to be able to spread things out. I want a reason to go get another monitor, so I have 3 monitors. Because I cannot be flipping back and forth between pages. That's just me. I don't have great visual memory. And people like Barry have trouble understanding that because he has phenomenal visual memory. That's how you get to write stuff like this. The virtual tables don't have metadata in them. You can't change the metadata the way you can around a regular table, and you need to be able to do that because the underlying backend on it may not have the metadata you want, and you need to do something with it. I haven't mentioned that to him yet, actually, so that'll be news if someone tells him that. And then there's all the stuff that we can do in terms of add-ins and making it a lot better. Does anyone have any outstanding questions right now before I go into my wrap-up? I'll take that silence for a no.
Doesn't sound like it.
I didn't. Pardon?
Doesn't sound like it, Hank.
Doesn't sound like it. Okay. Everyone's sleeping. Sorry. I actually wanted to do more in terms of, I'll bring you back here and show you what I wanted to do and show you how it works, just so that you can say you saw how it worked at least. Getting back on the other page here, what I was going to do is put the link table in here between colors and color palettes. I was then going to move this up here, and I was going to show you how blessedly easy it is to make those relate, which is because the fields are differently named, I would relate them like so. But then I would have to make one change of one letter, so it would be FK instead of PK, and then they would be automatically related. Now, there are 613, I think, well, it says 354 colors here. Oh, I know, on the link table, with the link table itself, there would be 613 because I worked out in the demo, right? And the link table, you might say, well, why aren't you using a parameterized view, so you're only pulling the ones you need? 613 when you're just pulling a few fields is like nothing. And Lianja does an incredible job of filtering. It is so fast, you can't see it happen. It will do that with 10,000 records just as well, by the way. And that's something to keep in mind when you're working on SQL Server, that for an awful lot of things, stuff is floating in memory, which you can do in Lianja. If you have, just as an example, if you have a server running the Lianja runtime and you have 1,000 users accessing it, there will be exactly one instance of that runtime running. Everyone gets their own user space, but only one instance of the runtime. Contrast that with terminal services, of course, where everyone has their own operating system running. It's that multi-tenanted architecture is very, very defined, implemented, and it is implemented here. It works, and it's elegant. It's elegant. Okay, back to the wrap-up. This is shameless plug time. We're going to be putting out Lianja, which is a Bookscene. That's our trademark, folks. The Bookscene is a book that is also a magazine. And why? Well, what's the typical work cycle for developing a book? I've been there and done that, and my God, it was a terrible experience. As every author will tell you, it's a terrible experience. And I'm talking about the great authors of VFP-dom have said it's a terrible experience. And I'm not one of the great authors of VFP-dom, believe me. But anyway, Bookscene instead takes instead of a year of work or more, a half year of editing and publication, by which time the book is 15 months out of date. The Bookscene comes out every month. It will have initially probably 10 articles, 12. Every month another 6 or 8 will get added. Old ones will be adjusted as the product develops, as more is known. And by the end of the year, you'll have a full book. By the end of 2 years, you'll have more than a full book, as new things keep coming out. And believe me, there are more new things. I've received hints of things that are well beyond anything that is in the published plans of Lianja, and it goes in areas that I can barely imagine. But I have reason to believe that they will happen. So I think we'll have a lot of material for a lot of time. So we're going to publish that. It's going to be really cheap, like $1.99 a month, maybe $14.99 for the year. It'll be ebook only. ERD for Lianja. We're publishing, that will be the full metadata suite that equivalent to what we used in VFP, except with our very own UI, because I tried to get Ellie of Resolution Limited, the X-Case folks. Ellie's a great guy. I love him. One time Ellie couldn't get it. Ellie brought his wrong passport to the airport in Jerusalem, or Tel Aviv he was flying from. And so Frank and I had to set up his stand in Miami. He couldn't make it till the next day. He had taken the wrong passport and they're so strict there's no way he was getting on the plane. So ERD for Lianja will have its own UI done with Joint.js, a JS library running in Lianja. We've already had proof of concept of it running in Lianja. And both of those, ERD for Lianja, will of course be represented on Lianja X and on the Lianja X forum, but questions there will be only for bugs. We're not going to do how-tos and that kind of thing there. Instead, we're going to offer the Process Plus subscription, which will include a Hello Lianja Bookscene. But we'll also include a forum for Q&A and requests about the articles in Lianja, Hello Lianja. It'll include formal ERD for Lianja documentation, how to use it, and so forth, including a forum for Q&A and requests. We'll have video how-tos for Lianja, along with a forum for Q&A and requests about the videos. And that'll be for a price of like $29.95 a year. We look at Lianja, partly we're doing this because this makes us better developers with Lianja. If you want to learn something, teach it. And so this will really help us out a lot. But what we really hope is that we are opening the doors to make developers productive at Lianja who come from many different places. And to do that, they're going to need a lot of help, but I think we can provide them a lot of help and help them be more productive quickly. And so we're looking at numbers, quite frankly. If after 5 years we don't have a minimum of 5,000 subscribers, I'll be very disappointed. I think it's entirely reasonable that we'll have 20,000. I think Lianja is going to be an incredible, incredible hit in terms of what it's going to do with the developer communities. People from PHP, for example, have no UI to work with in developing applications. This gives them that. So I think we're going to, I think Lianja is going to be a huge hit, and so we're basing it on numbers. We're trying to keep the bar that needs to be jumped as low as possible so that as many people as possible could take advantage of it. And finally, don't forget about Southwest Fox. I'm doing a pre-con on migrating apps. Now, my pre-con, I've been told, is going to be the one in the morning. They wouldn't give me a whole day because they have too many pre-cons to give. However, those who participate in the pre-con in the morning can count on me being available for the entire afternoon and evening also to continue migrating. There's no reason to stop. And so that's the pre-con. That's the day before all the sessions start. My regular session, I submitted 4. They accepted 2. Hey, Frank. Talk to you later. That is Frank Cabazon, not Frank Cam. Session moving to the cloud. That'll be just a 1.5-hour session. Man, that's going to be a quickie. I'm going to take a migrated app, a small migrated app, and get it moved to the cloud. Southwest Fox is October 17th to 20th. The early bird, that's by July 1st. You save $125 and get a free pre-con. And there are 3 chances to win a $150 scholarship in addition to that. So the early bird, $125 and a free pre-con, which, of course, if you had an interest, you could come to my pre-con. So that's that. Thank you all. Sorry I kept you all so late. I didn't think it was going to take this long, but I guess I had a lot of work to me tonight.
Good practice for Southwest Fox. Thanks, Hank. Any final questions out there? Going once? Going twice?
No, www.lianja.com. Go get your free beta. Play with it.
Okay.
If
Thanks,
you
Hank.
want to.